Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm your host, Jeff Howard. And, I didn't double check. I always believe in double checking. But I'm 99% sure I can pronounce your name well because I am a native and I'm a third generation Californian. Paulo Araujo.
Very close. Paulo, you got it right, and then Araujo.
Araujo. Oh, the J is a J.
Well, so it's Portuguese.
I was going to say Portuguese.
In Brazil, you go Araujo, and you need to roll that R, and then there's that second A that pops up. But English, you don't do that, so that A goes away and just becomes Araujo. It's like almost like the A doesn't.
And needless to say, yes, Californians only Spanish, the Portuguese. We miss all the pronunciations, but they're gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah.
I will admit that I had a super Brazilian music phase in college, and I'm familiar. With it's beautiful language, beautiful music, beautiful culture,
beautiful people, women, everything. It's no, it's
men
great.
And women.
I feel very fortunate to come from that culture.
I think no one from Brazil. Did I get close?
Brazil, yeah.
Brazil,
yeah.
But I know there's a little bit of W at the end for us, but it's a sexy country. It's a sexy culture.
Yeah, it's sexy. It's hot,
and people embrace sexiness, which.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing. Like I was actually in Brazil in March for a family thing, and you go out to the mall and you go here and there, and people are just dressed to the nines, looking good and stuff. And then the airport, and then when we came back to the United States, I'm looking around, I'm like, Americans are ugly. Like not like physically, like sure, like there's still people that are good, but I'm just saying the way they dress, the way they carry themselves. It's just like, I'm going to throw on sweatpants. I'm going to the airport. Who cares? When you go to Brazil or some of these other countries, like people are going out, doesn't matter. They're going to look right. And so that's something that they really, and that's why plastic surgery is huge in Brazil and all that stuff. So it can kind of get out of control. But when I came back, I was like, Americans are kind of ugly. Like we don't like put ourselves together really. Like,
well, to be honest, that's what everyone says when they come to LA, right? Like they come to LA and they're like, everyone here is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I admit, when I go to other parts of the country, sometimes I look around and go, wow, I guess the 10 most attractive people from every high school do come to LA and then I become an asshole and say they come to LA to wait tables. But no, they come here to act.
Yeah.
But then they serve you drinks and food and you just get the impression that this level of attractiveness is normal.
Yeah.
But it's not.
No.
But in Brazil,
yes.
Everyone's
in Brazil, you could go to some small town somewhere and you're just like, what? Like, yeah, they would come here and be famous or something, like, or a model of some sort. And yeah, there's just, I don't know, the genetics. There's just a great mix down there where it's like European and Native American and black and it's just this great, like there's like basically there's like a skin tone that I don't think exists anywhere else except Brazil. It's called morena, where it's like, and in Spanish they kind of say it too, like moreno, but like it's like this golden brown and it's this skin tone that you don't really find in other parts of the world. And I think that skin just comes from that perfect blending,
I mean, you actually are already throwing up a flag of something I've always believed in, which is mixed cultures, mixed ethnic backgrounds. What is it? I forget from high school biology, but it's there's hybrid resistance. There's advantages to hybridization.
Yeah.
And there's just no. I used to joke that if I was a dictator, I'd just make it illegal to reproduce with someone of your own race, so that we'd end up like the most beautiful, intelligent, athletic culture on earth.
That's funny. Imagine being a dictator, but like you're super positive.
Yeah.
Everyone's eating carrots. Everyone's freaking, going to college. And if you're not, but then it's like you're gonna get killed. So it's like he's still a dictator, but it's like super positive.
I mean, not to jump on my health soapbox, but yeah, we're gonna tax fat and refined sugar so that it's actually more expensive to eat at Taco Bell than to eat an apple.
Yes,
right?
It should be. I know
it should be. But truth is, when I've been broke in life, yeah, the least expensive food is the worst for you.
I know, and those prices are going up. Yeah, in this country.
In other countries, the poor are beautiful because they eat. They have to eat.
They have abs,
Yeah.
And not because they're malnutrition. I mean, there's a difference, but like they're like eating well. They're outside, and they're eating actual stuff from the earth.
They're eating organic, but I'm putting organic in air quotes with my fingers because there's no money for fertilizers and pesticides.
Yeah, they're really eating organic. Like we're eating some bastardized version, like where they call it organic, but it's like, what about all this stuff? What about the pesticides you spray to get rid of the insects and all that thing?
It is dicey. Whereas I have an avocado tree right 10 feet from where we're sitting.
That's great. And I'm moving to
they taste almost as good as a Costco avocado.
Yeah. See, we don't need Costco. No. I'm not.
Yeah. All right. We're 5 minutes in, and we haven't talked about your film.
Yes.
So
all right.
I'm going to do the proper introduction that I was supposed to do 5 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. Tell me again, Araujo,
but that's good.
Araujo.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it right when we sign off.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to type it phonetically. So anyway.
Yeah.
You brought your film Accidental Artist to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival in 2023. It is a documentary, and I'm just going to say right now, brilliant documentary. I don't even think there's spoilers involved, right? You can literally say,
you could say,
after freak. I'm going to read your logline.
Please.
After a freak accident leaves a middle-aged man partially paralyzed with a traumatic brain injury, he discovers an extraordinary ability to paint that he never had before. And you made a documentary about this person, and it is wonderfully made, wonderfully told, and that is why you took home the Filmmakers Award for Outstanding Short Film Documentary and Outstanding Creativity Documentary.
That's right, yeah.
And you took home those 2 awards. And I'll add that Filmmakers Awards, I don't know if I explained this to you at the festival last year, but that's given out by a panel of people who were official selections at previous years of the festival. Mm-hmm. So that's actually an award from your peers.
Yeah.
Because admittedly, the selection jury is older.
Yeah.
And less active creatively, right? Like the people on the jury. God bless everyone on the jury. But they're not your peers. Like the Filmmakers Awards come from people actively making films on the festival circuit, looking at your film and going, that one kicked ass. So I think I always make a pitch that it means more.
Yeah, no, I was completely honored. It was great. This, like, the Sherman Oaks Film Festival was the first film festival that I got into that was at that level. So it was a complete honor just to be part of it, and then to win that was just cherry on top. So
world premiere.
It was the world premiere. Yeah,
world premiere. Figure.
World premiere. I did have a pre-screening in my hometown where I had I just invited friends and family, and we had a little. The guy's name is Alder Crocker. He came through. We had a Q&A. We watched it. So we had a little, and that was special in and of itself. But yeah, Sherman Oaks was the world kind of got to see.
Theatrical premiere.
Yes.
Air quotes again if you could hear it in my voice.
Yeah, theatrical.
But no, I mean,
100%.
A personal screening for family, friends, and your subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, that isn't anyway. So
yeah,
I didn't say it. I got to learn to introduce this podcast by saying it's brought to you by the Indie Channel, because I need people to know the Indie Channel exists. So hey, I have a feeling that Accidental Artist is going to be on the Indie Channel in the coming weeks. The Indie Channel is a smart TV app, basically a streaming service that's on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV, your iPhone and your Android phone, and it's also at indiechannel.tv. And it's a streaming service with the mission to get indie films out to the public and to make some money, because 50% of gross receipts are shared evenly among all the filmmakers who are contributing. Doesn't matter how many clicks or views a film gets. Because I guess, based on Paulo's face, I have to explain it. It's that, some films could be like horror and comedy and thriller, and some are just only comedy, or some are just only. And so I didn't want people's financial rewards to be based upon how many categories there are and how much they get clicked.
Yeah.
So the right thing to do is to be a little socialist and share
it's like
evenly.
pooling tips. Pooling tips is like a waiter. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's great. Yeah.
And so that's the idea behind the Indie Channel. And if you're listening, check it out, because there's even a free sampling on there before you even have to give a credit card, because the films are great. And if we can get enough subscribers, people like yourself can be like, all right, if I make another 10 to 15 minute documentary, I actually know what budget I can set that I will get back someday.
That's great, yeah.
Which doesn't happen with indie films, short or feature.
Yeah.
And we got shorts, features on there. We even got some indie stand-up.
Oh, really?
So,
Nice.
and dance films, all kinds of cool shit. All right, now we're at 10 minutes, and I haven't asked you the critical question.
Oh, God.
You're the first. I don't know if in 7 years of this podcast I've ever given 2 timing updates, but we are at 10 minutes
I'll take
and blah, blah, blah seconds. And the question is, you made this great film as director and producer and probably a ton of other things, because when you make an indie, particularly documentary, I don't know if you used an editor, if you cut yourself.
No, I was the editor, too.
You're the editor, too?
Yeah. There's a little bit of a story behind that. I'll save that.
You were probably craft service. You were probably...
Oh, yeah. I was PA. I was everything.
You would sometimes yell at your PA, like inside your own head, why didn't I do that?
Yeah, literally. Yeah. It was a very small crew, for sure.
Has to be. To be. So you want to share how you got into filmmaking and into ended up in LA making films? And
Yeah, I'd love to. So I put filmmaking in the bucket of just creativity. I think as a lot of people do, there's a lot of things within creativity, singing, acting, dancing, filmmaking, the whole thing, And so I think filmmaking I came to a little later in life. I started off in musical theater. That was like my first foray into the arts. And it was when I was in middle school. And it was just something fun to do. My best friend was doing it at the time. And I found out pretty quick that I had a kind of natural knack for it. I wasn't really afraid to be on stage. I didn't have a problem memorizing lines. And at that age, that gets the attention of the people that are putting, these little. It was a community theater for kids, and so I ended up started getting some leads, started singing and stuff. And then when I got to high school, I just continued, and so then I did musical theater all throughout high school, along with wrestling and stuff. So I was not. You couldn't put me in a bucket because it was just I would my wrestling coach. He'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to musical theater practice." He's just like, "You're gay." I know that's not. He's an old school. He's an old school guy, but it was just it. I just laugh at it. I just think it's so funny because that could come out of a teen comedy or something. But
look, my high school tennis coach was mad at me for doing a play.
Yeah.
They're just I need you X number of hours a day.
Yeah, we need you. And then wrestling's.
By the way, I mean to address his old-fashioned homophobia, you were going to meet a lot more women doing musical theater
than wrestling,
than putting on a unitard and grabbing other men.
I know which is more
funny
gay.
That the wrestling coach is that's gay, and it's oh really? You should look at the anyway.
I know. No, you're 100% right, and that's kind of what happened. I mean, I was the lead and stuff, and I definitely got to know my castmates. Let's say so. It was good. It was a great experience, and a lot of people afterwards were like, "So Paulo, you're gonna continue acting? You're gonna?" And it was weird. Oh, I should also mention in that time period, I also actually kind of went for it, with auditioning and stuff like that. And I actually got a few roles as a kid. My biggest role was I played the younger version of Freddie Prinze Jr. in a film called Brooklyn Rules. So literally, I'm the first thing you see in this movie, and I'm only in it for about 5 minutes. It's like a little Stand By Me-ish little vignette that because it's about growing up in New York, and I play an Italian and all Italian descent. So anyways,
by the way, I blew it. Did you grow up back there?
Yes, I grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in the tri-state area, so I lived in New York.
I mean, the part of Connecticut that's the nice suburbs of New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, if anyone knows about Connecticut, it's a small state, but there's a lot of variety there. So I'm from Fairfield County, from Norwalk, Connecticut, and the cities around it are what you would think, super wealthy and everything. But Norwalk, and this is where I feel fortunate to have grown up from there, it's a melting pot for sure. Middle class, wealthy, poor, it had everything. So I got to see a lot of different slices of life living in Norwalk, and it's still, I think, it's a very special place to me. And it's, I think in a lot of ways, kind of helped form my creative sensibilities because my friend group were always riffing, we're always running around. They're the ones where we picked up a camera. We did a little bit of the YouTube thing back in the day, 2006, 2007. We put some stuff up there, So Norwalk it really helped. And so I did, the stuff when I was a little kid. And then I don't know, I got to be kind of in high school, whatever. And I turned to my mom and was like, I'm not really feeling this as much anymore. My mom wasn't a stage mom. She's like, okay, if you don't want to do it. So then I went to college and stuff. And in college there was wait.
Uh-huh. So high school.
Yeah.
creativity was just musical theater and
Yeah,
stuff.
it was-
So you stayed with the stuff, but then college, you went to college and like you left creativity behind for
I
a
left
minute?
creativity behind, and like within, also with, I went to, but it was always sort of there. Like, so like I went to community college first, and there was like a TV production class that I took, and then, I met some kids there. We made a short film, and then I go to college, and then I transferred to Roger Williams, which is, for the last 2 years, I joined the film club there. I did, acting there. So it was always just kind of there, because it was something that I never fully relinquished, where either it was still more on the acting side, but it was starting to go more towards film with like these little shorts. And then I went into basically corporate America, went into this advertising firm or whatever. But I'm someone that still was always kind of struggling with what it was, like who I was, what I wanted, And, I listened to my mom a lot. And she was like, well, look, there's this place called Stella Adler in New York. It's an acting service there. Maybe you do that at night, and then do the job during the day. And I was like, okay. And so it was a 2-year thing. And this is where my life takes an abrupt left. I basically quit my job 9 months in. I continue on with the acting, and then get a job at like Luke's Lobster, and then a year and a half in, I quit the acting school, because the acting school, after a certain amount of time, it felt like a kind of a waste of time. It was like and then that's when I really was like, I saw what it would take to be a professional actor. And I was like, I don't know if I have it in me. And I think it was really, and so then I made another drastic pivot and go to a place called the Manhattan Edit Workshop, which is a 6-week intensive where you learn editing. Not a lot of people will go from a acting conservatory where it's all about me, I'm in front, the lights are on me, to I'm going to go learn editing where I'm going to be behind a computer for 12 hours and stuff like that. And looking back at it now, I think it's, internally, I think I was just searching. I was just searching for what it was that was like, that really felt like me. And I always enjoyed editing. So then through editing, I got a job, with, so still kept it in the creative world. I think that the conservatory opened my mind to just being an artist in general. So I wasn't about to go back to an advertising thing. That's why I went to the editing, and then just kind of continued on. And then from there I worked at a production company for a little bit. I have a friend that from high school that's a director. He got me on a few PA things, and then I was basically PAing in New York for like 2 years. And then I got a job unrelated to film, but through film, for the Super Bowl that was here in LA. Mm-hmm. I was basically printing credentials, nothing glamorous. I got to hold the Lombardi trophy for a second. And then I was just like, I've always wanted to move to LA. I wasn't, even the PA stuff, it was just like I was PAing and like I was making connections, but I don't know. That searching. So then I was like, I'm going to move here. And so I ended up moving here, and not exactly knowing what it is I was pursuing. I wasn't coming here to like act, like I'm going to be an actor. I came over here to just continue on my search, basically, to continue on this, I guess you can call it filmmaking, because by the time I was editing and all that stuff, like I had been doing more of that. And so, I was fortunate enough to land the biggest gig that I've ever gotten in terms of filmmaking, which is I edited a low-budget television show, 8 episodes, production supervisor, the whole thing. It was crazy. And that gave me a lot of confidence, like, hey, you kind of know what you're doing. And so anyways, that kind of brings me to like LA, but I think for me, I've always been someone that like has my eyes open and my heart open to experiences and interactions. So my antenna is always up. And this takes us to Accidental Artist, where so now we're talking, it's probably like, this was actually right around where I had the LA gig. Just a few months prior is when I discovered this story about Alder. And I discovered it in a bar in Norwalk. I was sitting there, and there's all these paintings around, and they're really abstract and funky and stuff. And I asked the bartender, why is, because you could tell it was like this from the same artist. I was like, why do you have all of like the same type kind of? He's like, oh, this is like our artist in residence. We do this every month. Like, here's like a little information on him. Yeah, it's crazy. And then he told me a little bit about his story, and then that's when the antenna came up, and I stored it in the back of my head like, this is a story that needs to be told. I don't know if anyone's ever told it, whatever. And so I like saved his number and then called him while I was on the gig in LA, introduced myself. At that point, I had already made my first documentary, which again is like that idea of like the antenna. There's this very, it's called Zebra Man. So if you literally go on YouTube and type Zebra Man, it should pop up. That was actually the first like legit documentary I ever made. It's like 7 minutes long, and that was because while I was working at that production studio in New York, I was just inspired to make my own stuff. You know, I was editing other things, whatever, and I was working with people that were talented. So there's this guy in my hometown who's like a ex-hip, or he's still a hippie. I mean, he like literally never let it go. Drives a old Volkswagen van with painted with zebra stripes, looks like Gandalf, like with the pipe, and like sits on a bench and like just doesn't talk to anybody. You know, like eccentric guy. And so I went up to him, and so anyways, I was like, someone should make a documentary about him. No one's ever made a documentary about him. And so that was my first foray into like interviewing, getting B-roll, all that stuff. I was lucky enough that production company had like an FX something or FS7 or something. So it was like a decent camera. So it already kind of looked professional. And so anyways, the guy Alder watched that. He was like, okay, I see that, you know, you're not just, you know, talking shit. You know, you actually have made something. And he was like, yeah, and you're not asking for money or anything, so let's do it. And so I set that up. And then, yeah, we did it over the course of 2 weekends, the B-roll and everything. I had like a guy that I was working with and his friend, like he was the DP and stuff. And yeah, we shot it. You know, my friend was supposed to edit it, and I was waiting on him. And then finally I was like, okay, I just got to edit this thing. Because, you know, the thing with creativity too is what I found is like, a lot of times finishing a project is difficult. You know, you'll shoot it and then it'll just sit in a hard drive. So that was, you know, a good exercise to just get it done. And then, yeah, I submitted it to a bunch of places. Didn't really get into a lot. Got into Sherman Oaks, and I'm so happy that I did because, you know, like I've told you, it's like you guys really roll out the red carpet, you know, for people that are, you know, the small fish in the pond. And it makes you feel kind of like a big fish. It makes you feel good and like, you know, recognized because, you know, you put a lot of time and stuff into this. Yeah, so that brings us to Accidental Artist. And yeah, I'm still working. Like at this point now, like I've gotten little random editing gigs here and there. And as we currently speak, I'm editing a feature documentary about a rapper named Kosha Dills, who's Israeli, and basically he's like I don't know how to think of him, like sort of like a kind of more of a funny rapper, like Macklemore, sort of in that vibe, not too serious. And then when October 7th happened last year, he like completely switched up his music and became really political and very like, you know, like he had to do it for his people, this whole thing. And then he started to post these interviews with people on the street, asking them about what they thought. And at that time, that was like the hot topic, and it blew him up. And so he'd been rapping for 20 years. He's the most famous he's ever been now. And so now he's struggling with like, I'm becoming famous off of a tragedy, but also that tragedy I feel like needs a voice and I need to protect. So there's a lot of like themes in there. So I'm in the process of editing that. And the other thing is I actually have I have a short film. So not nonfiction. That I will be submitting to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival for next year. But yeah, okay. I think I don't know. Like, I know. That was long.
I wish I could remember every question that popped in my head.
Yeah, I know. I just kept going.
But no, it's good. It's good. And I don't believe in interrupting.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Because no, that was a great role. So you didn't share what. So Zebra Man was the first doc, but yeah. Did you love documentaries? Were you into documentaries, or were you just aware that like when you see something in real life?
Yeah,
to me, I find that a very fascinating choice because some people will like see a Zebra Man and go, "I'm going to write a script. I'm going to write a fictional story that is half inspired by them." And honestly, I kind of prefer your method. I kind of prefer like, no, let's document something real.
Yeah.
Like, were you a fan of documentary, or was it just that you just felt like that was the most honest way to tell this person's story?
That's an interesting question. Like I've always enjoyed documentaries. I'm not like a fanboy for documentaries, but there are great documentaries I've watched in my life, and it never crossed my mind to make a script about him. I felt like. I don't know. Maybe it's because New York is a little bit more focused on documentary, maybe by osmosis. Like kind of, I don't know. Like I just, I saw an opportunity I saw a subject that was interesting and let's put a camera in front of his face. And that's how a lot of my creativity happens. I'm someone that almost needs to have something tangible first that I can that then I could grow from. So if I'm walking down the street and I see a really like peculiar, like, I don't know, like a staircase that leads to like whatever. It's like something that's like, that looks kind of weird. I'll think of a story that I'll think of that as a location to shoot a film. But I won't think in my head, we should make a movie about a weird staircase or whatever. It's the other way around. It's like from the outside in a lot of times. And, that was the case with Zebra Man. That's the case with Accidental Artist. That's even the case with this narrative film. It's called Capital. It's 7 minutes long. That film actually was also from the outside in. I wrote that script because I work for this company, not so much now, but it's called Real Arc, and they do these high production scenes for actors where, an actor needs footage, but they don't want to just throw up like some low budget student film. So they're shooting with red. They got the lights. They have a gaffer.
Right. So they're helping people with their reels.
They're with their reels.
Yeah.
And usually the reels are like husband and wife, mother, daughter, procedural, that kind of stuff. There was this one day where we did a talk show, and it was the first time we'd ever done it, and it was about a politician, and then like he's getting called out and whatever. And I was directing it, and I enjoyed the scene so much because it was it was different. Two, the actors were good, especially the guy that was playing the congressman. And then he basically walks off. That's the scene. And again, it's a minute and a half. It's supposed to look like it comes from something else, but really it comes from nothing. It's just that scene. And then I was thinking, one, because I wanted to work with that actor again, because I'm like, he's so, like, if you see his face, you're just like, yeah, like, that guy should be in movies. And I was like, what would have happened after he left that scene? And I was just thinking about it. And in Real Arc, there's different sets. So then I'm like, it'd be kind of cool if, like, after he walks out, it cuts to him, like, in a motel watching the interview he did on a phone. And, like, you could tell he's been drinking and stuff because he's like, it's an embarrassing moment for him. And I was like, and we could shoot that at Real Arc because we have that set. And so that took me in a direction, and I wrote like 6-7 pages, kind of wrapped up the story or whatever. But I would have never thought of that story if I hadn't have had the scene first. So for me, a lot of the time, it's like seeing something real and then using that,
I mean, honestly, by the way, I don't believe in astrology at all. Mm-hmm. But I'm about to say, like, you're balanced like a Libra. I happen to be a Libra, so I know it's the scales.
I am a Libra.
I'm a Libra, too. Go figure. So...
Damn, you're good.
And do you not believe in it either? Because I'm pretty sure that not everyone born during the same 28 days is the same. But,
right. I know.
But anyhow, but I was going to say that going back to high school even, you're always balanced. Like I was going to say, you're always seeking a balance, and it's like you're creatively practical or practically creative. Like your creativity always has a practical side to it.
Yeah.
But your practicality always has a creative side to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like throughout your whole story that you shared so far, like you're always finding that happy medium in a way where you're like, this person's interesting. All right, this is a good practical thing to do, but here's my creative idea for it.
Yeah.
Or I have something really creative, but how can I make sure it's practical so that, like, I don't, like you're talking about, I'm going to use the sets that I have available. Like you wrote it to that instead of writing it to your dreams.
I never write to my dreams. No way. There's another script. I don't want to say to it because I'm also, if you're talking about astrology, I do sort of believe that like if there's something that you're like working on or whatever, like you shouldn't talk too much about it because it kind of like. But the only thing I'll say is this would be like a feature film. This would be this will be Paulo's whatever big movie. And it's about a story of a woman that is a family friend, and she has this incredible story. And I was actually interviewing her for a documentary way back in the day that never happened, but her story is incredible, and it's about her immigrating to the United States, and there's a whole bunch of trials and tribulations. And I just go, oh, that's a movie. So it would just be like again real to it's taking her story and then creating. For that one, it wouldn't be a documentary. That one I would want to fictionalize it and stuff. But yeah, for sure, I don't see any point. I don't see any point in writing a sci-fi film that I can't like. That's like, oh, we're in a spaceship. Why? Do you have a spaceship? No. So I'm like, oh, but I do have that set at Real Arc. I do have, like in this film Capital, the only really location that like I kind of had to talk to someone was this liquor store. But I knew the guy that worked at the liquor store. And I was like, hey, and we had been, talking and stuff. And, he's like, yeah, sure, use it. And then the other one was just we're in some alleyways. We're in some back alleys. And that was it. So, my brain always kind of works that way, because I can't, it's hard for me to just literally conjure something up out of nothing. It's like, I need to see something.
And the day will hopefully, knock on wood, knock on partially wood table, make it loud. Yeah, the mics. Obviously, if you were given an opportunity and told, okay, you have a budget of X to think about, then you could let yourself go there.
And that's the practicalness. If someone was like, here's something here's your springboard. I'm always looking for the springboard to then, So,
and I was going to add that you finding editing with the story of from musical theater to advertising to Stella Adler back to editing.
Yeah.
People don't give editing credit for being as creative as it is.
It's one of the most fun parts.
Most creative jobs on a film,
yeah.
if not the most, because you literally are like everyone else is like just honestly not to demean anything involved in film, because every level, every person who works on a film is important. But really on set, they're just getting the pieces together.
Yeah.
They're creating the palette of paints that they give to that editor, and then the editor completes the painting based upon, really a blueprint. Like the script is a blueprint, and then the editor. But it's an incredibly creative process.
I think it's one of the best parts. Like I was thinking as you were saying that with the palette, I was also thinking like a puzzle. Mm-hmm. So it's basically just like, okay, do you want to be the guy that just like, I don't know, there's just like a mound of puzzle pieces and that's production, or do you want to actually make the puzzle and actually see what it is? And so I enjoy production. I guess I don't want to say weird, but different. Where on a set, I'm a social guy. I'm hey, what's up? Bada bing, bada boom. I was already doing finger guns and stuff. Like I'm like that. But when I go to edit, it's harder for me. I will be honest. Like it's not like I'm a complete, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but it is harder for me sometimes to like rein myself in, because anyone that edits that's listening to this, I don't even care if you're a really good editor. There's something about wheeling yourself in front of that computer and just sitting there and doing it. There's a process to get yourself in that mind state. When I'm in there, I love it. I think, and especially, and when I was at Manhattan Edit Workshop, they're always just like, yeah, it's really tough to kind of go between documentary and film. It's you kind of just, New York is the doc world, LA is the film world. And I was always like, well, that sucks. Like they both offer so much. And I feel like right now, like, I'm still working on my career. I hope to, keep growing stuff. But even with my level now, it's like I'm editing this doc, and then like I edited my short film, so I'm still kind of like have a foot in both worlds, because the editing, it's like it's a different muscle, but you're like you said, it's so creative. Like the way you cut a scene can change the whole mood. The way like in a doc, if you just cut 5 seconds before, it's just So I agree. I think it's one of the most fun parts.
And I mean, I guess obviously the people at that program, I can't call them wrong, but I kind of want to. I kind of want to, because the problem-solving creative skills of video editing, it doesn't matter if it's a documentary or a commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, people who have edited, and I've edited unprofessionally, but like, you stare at it, and then like something happens, and there's a little spark, and then you create a solution to that problem.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if, I don't know why I'm using this example, but it doesn't matter if it's a tampon commercial or a documentary or a music video.
Yeah.
You're still looking for the way to use picture and sound to communicate to an audience.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't buy that they're so different.
I agree 100%. It's like it's just kind of a different problem to solve, but it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. If you watch a documentary that's any good, there's scenes in there. They're manufactured, so you can't even really say documentary is a slice of life, because it's not. It's taking real life and molding it to a story. It's closer than a film, but it's still not real life, but you're still watching scenes. I mean, that's just, I'm sorry, like, you can't, like, be as abstract as you want. I'm sorry, I'm not going to like your film most of the time. Like, if it's just, like, you know what I mean? Like, you need to have scenes, you need to have structure, and I feel like that's where documentaries and film are actually very related. To your point, too, with the editing, it's like, because I was just thinking, like, with the springboard thing, editing, there's springboards everywhere. Like, the annoying part of editing is getting it all together and the string outs and then getting all the things. That's the annoying part. That's why hopefully, you have an assistant editor and maybe, But at this point in my life, I'm doing it all. But once you start to play with the footage and you go, oh, shit, like, he said this here and I got that there. And you know what I mean? It's because all those puzzle pieces are right there for you to just play, And so there's a lot of springboards. You put that together, you're like, oh, this could be the beginning of the film, and then we could, So yeah, I like it. I think editing gets kind of a bad rap. I think it's not as glamorous. I think
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah. I mean, nothing. There's glamour to directing,
because I was going to say, like, being a gaffer is also not glamour. Like, a key grip,
but none of the roles are respected as much. But they're all creative, and and I was going to add, I can't help but say, I'm going to say this on behalf of a person whose name I can't remember, but because there's more than one. Documentary filmmakers have often quarreled with the term narrative film and documentary film because docs have a narrative.
Yeah.
They are absolutely telling a story.
100%.
And just because they're telling a story with documented footage instead of produced footage, it's funny, It's maybe the correct term is scripted and unscripted, but that we associate with junk TV sometimes. So,
like reality TV.
Yeah, like documentary, like unscripted.
Yeah.
But it's tricky.
Yeah. I think there's also something interesting where I feel like the two worlds are kind of coming together more. Like, now that documentary had their big boom and Netflix and stuff, like, you're starting to see produced scenes within documentaries. It's still really what's always been, which is like the recreations. It's just the recreations are getting more cinematic, where it used to be like, and then, like, usually it was like crime. It's like, and then she was murdered.
They really are screwing with the formats, right? Because Prime Video did that Jury Duty series.
Oh my gosh!
It was a scripted document, but the element of the one guy who didn't know what was going on.
That show was so good.
It was a documentary about his reactions to this completely artificial situation.
Yeah,
but like, I mean, there's an argument that was. Oh, I can show them if you want. Hopefully the microphones are pretty good at not picking that up.
I was like, what cyborg just walked in this room?
Admittedly, there are devices here listening to us, so unfortunately,
that we know and don't know about.
Yeah, it's true. Hi, Vladimir. So anyway, it's so distracting. But yes,
it's okay.
So we are actually in a very cool time, right? Because there was. The reality show thing was sort of an extension of game shows in a way, but now they're getting more scripted and they're getting more in. Like, there's people approach this stuff creatively all over the place, and for sure. But so back to what you were talking about. So with the documentary, so Zebra Man, did you hit the festival circuit with that one?
No, actually, I didn't. That was pretty early on. It was.
Like, it wasn't on your radar.
It wasn't on my radar yet. Yeah. I was still just. Oh, I should also mention. Shout out to another one of my videos. It's called "Cops Acting Badly." That was before Zebra Man, or right around the same time. But that's actually, we should probably. So I was probably in my mid-20s, and that's where I started to make stuff. And so I wasn't the kid. When I was, 8, I made movies with my brother. I feel like every freaking director has that story. It's just like, I made a few films with my brother and stuff, and it was fun and whatever and silly. But I was never like, I will say, though, I do remember specifically when I was in elementary, middle school, in the back of my head, I always not know, like, it wasn't like, one day I'm definitely going to be this. But it was like a voice telling me that, like, I was going to be a director. I was going to be a writer of some sort. It was always kind of like, I just remember back then, And it's funny that like now it's like kind of, it's happened with these projects where like, oh shoot, I guess, your subconscious does kind of know where you should ultimately like end up. As much as I've struggled with like identity and what I should do and stuff like that, I think I always come back to it's like, no, but this is kind of who you are. Like you are this guy that like thinks in this way, needs to express himself in that way. But anyways, we're going off topic. Oh yeah, so when I was 25, that's when I started to like actually produce stuff. So Cops Acting Badly was like a sketch comedy thing that I wrote. And I used a guy from, again, you see, I'm using people, like not in a bad way, but just like material.
Utilizing.
Yeah. So it was like I was utilizing this guy that I went to school with at Stella Adler. That was my friend. I was utilizing, his friend that was a DP. And again, utilizing, I scouted out this location. I was like, oh, we could do it there. So that was like my first into more professional, was like shot on a black magic. Like I showed it to people and people were like, this is like kind of good. Like this is your first like thing. And I was like, yeah, kind of like of quality. And then Zebra Man. And I was still not thinking about film festivals. I was just thinking about just creating. I just wanted to express myself and make these things. And I didn't really know why, really. I didn't know. I wasn't thinking about it so much. But Zebra Man was cool. If you look at it, it's got about like 4.5 thousand views. But the reason why it has that amount of views is because it was a film for Norwalk, for the people of Norwalk. Everyone knows that guy. So when I put it on Facebook and I put it on the groups and stuff, people were like, oh my God, because no one knew. It was an opportunity. No one knew about this guy. No one really knew his story. Now, I wanted to make a real documentary about him. I wanted to get into what the hell happened to this guy. I wanted to talk to his mom. I wanted to just get, like Accidental Artist. Even Accidental Artist, we can talk about that. I still feel that movie, I wish it went another layer deep, but that's okay. With Zebra Man, I wanted to go, but he was like, no. He's like, you can't interview my family. I was like, I was like, what does he do for work? And he's like, oh yeah, I vacuum like this. He lives in like government housing, whatever. He's like, no, you can't show that because technically I'm disabled. So if they see me like working, I'm going to get in trouble. So I was already having this inclination of like emotion, truth. Like those were the things that I was like already kind of had a knack for trying to like get. With Zebra Man, it didn't get to that level, but I was still able to make a piece that was entertaining for the people of Norwalk, and everyone watched it. So they kind of got a glimpse. I guess I say all this to say like people got a glimpse of the guy that they didn't know about. I just wish the glimpse was a little bit deeper than what it was.
But he wouldn't go there.
He wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
He was still. It's almost like in his mind he sort of saw himself as like this celebrity guy, and like he's still kind of like this fixture. He said some wild stuff to me. It's like, oh yeah, it's like I was going to be in Star Wars. And they offered me $2 million. I said I'd do it for $3 million, and they said no. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like this guy's an interesting guy, like kooky. And the one last thing about that documentary that's funny is, so I'm there on the second weekend, and there was a parade going on in Norwalk, and he's playing an instrument and stuff. And I'd be like, oh, this would be great B-roll. I'm there with my friend. He's got the camera, and when you look at this camera, you're like, that's like a professional camera. This guy comes up to us also with like a pretty nice camera. And he's like, oh, what are you guys shooting here? I see your camera and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, yeah, the Zebra Man guy, Zarzan, that's his other name he calls himself. He's like, yeah, we're doing a documentary about him. And he goes, oh, wow, so cool, me too. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like I said, no one's ever made a documentary about this guy. And here I am, feeling all good about myself, like, yeah, like what a perfect subject and all this stuff. And there was an inaugural Norwalk Film Festival that year that I was going to submit it to. This kid submitted it 2 weeks before me. Then I submitted mine. And a friend of mine that was working at the festival said, look, yours is better than his, but he is in first. And the people at the festival don't want a movie about the same subject. And so I didn't get in.
Yeah, but why didn't they pick the better one?
I don't know.
Maybe they fucked up and told the kid, we love it, it's in. And then 2 weeks later, they saw something better and went, oops.
Yeah, and a lot of people that I've told that story to, they're just like, why wouldn't you want to see two movies on the same subject? Because his is so different from mine. It's talking about filmmaking, art, perspective, and stuff. It's be interesting to see how two different people,
Oh man, you'll love this. I think Sherman Oaks Film Festival, they're a local arts high school with an editing class. the guy running the editing class came to us and was like, hey, can we work with you with our students and stuff? And I said, I've got an idea that I've wanted a class like yours to do forever, which is let's take documentary footage. Let's take, we've got documentaries in the festival that are like 5 minutes long. Let's ask one of those filmmakers to give their raw footage to your class and have all 30 kids each cut their own doc, because I would just love to show the 5 most cool, different versions, just to show really how creative editing is and how different the results can be from the same raw footage.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool? Even a narrative, even not documentary, like a narrative, see how 5 different, 20 different people come up with when the problem solving they do. It'd be so cool.
So cool. And Manhattan Edit Workshop, that's actually what we did, is that there were people who gave their footage, basically, donated their footage to the school. I think these were also people that had been at the school years before. So we would all cut the same thing, the whole class, and we would watch it. So we sort of did that, and I think that's actually a great way to learn. I remember there was one part where we had a documentary footage about a skater that was turning his boards into pieces of art, and and how I started mine was, all you hear is just the sound of the wheels of the skateboard. That's how it starts. And then it goes from black and it fades up. And then you see and it kind of just stays on that for a little bit just to get you in the mood. A kid that was in the class who, shout out James Barton, he's still an editor, a great dude. I met him there and he turned to me and goes, dude, I didn't even think about that. I was like, he's like, it's a documentary. It sounds so obvious, but it's why not start on the wheels and the sound, And that's, to me, just feel like a natural place, but it was, it was cool because, he cut it a different way and stuff. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea, like what you did, because that's, or you said you did do it or you're going to do it?
I suggested it and it didn't happen.
Oh, well, that's their loss, because that's a great way to learn, I think.
It is a very cool thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, whatever, you're dealing with high school kids.
Yeah.
But, so that's cool that you did that. Yeah. And the skater documentary sounds very cool.
Yeah, but that one's not. That was just for the class. That was
just for class.
Yeah, but the subject matter was pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, and and we were talking about Norwalk, right, and Zebra Man. Yeah. There's a little bit.
Yeah, there's a little beef there, but now I'm going to be submitting this film Capital, which is the narrative with scripted. I'm going to be submitting it to Norwalk Film Festival, and we'll see what happens. That movie's kind of funny because it's I guess you can say it's political. The name of it's called Capital, but really it's not really about politics. It's more of a human story, and it's so funny. The election just happened, and I submitted it to this. Have you ever heard of the Great LA Film Club? They're this.
No, but I should.
Yeah, dude, they're pretty.
There's a couple of groups, and every once in a while we come across a group, and we're like, hey, you guys can have. We'll offer you free tickets to come watch films. We'll offer you this. We'll offer you that. And it's interesting. Sometimes the response is really tiny, and I'm like, how can you be a film club and not want to watch films? But whatever.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But
yeah. So they have monthly screenings and stuff, and I was like, that's going to be. It's free to submit, but I just think I literally submitted it 2 days before the election, and the paranoid version of me, I didn't hear anything back. I'm like, oh God, is it because, someone watched it and was like, oh, this is so whatever. But I think it's because it was just basically a few days before the deadline. So hopefully it gets its little screening next month and stuff. And then after that, I'll have a little bit of funds and I'll, submit it to festivals like the Sherman Oaks Film Festival.
Well, there is an alumni discount code.
Oh, sweet.
So
I will use it.
So use it, yes. No, I handed out. We handed out liberally, but that's very cool. I actually blinked on my next question. Now I've got dead air. So what do we?
That's okay. Well, this is actually my first podcast.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much talking.
What it was? What? So get this. I just interrupted you because we brought up politics, and we are 2 days removed from the big election, a very big one. Mm-hmm. I am partisan. I'm disappointed, but you made me think of the politics of accidental artists.
Oh yeah,
and that you and I just we want to go there, right?
Sure. Yeah. I don't mind.
Because there's a reason why Sherman Oaks Film Festival got the world premiere.
Yeah.
And it's because some other festivals respected the work, but rejected it for a non-filmmaking reason.
Yeah, you don't really get feedback, when you submit to these things. But I submitted to this one where it's called like the Feedback Festival, and their thing is they're a little bit different, where it's like, you can submit, and then there's this feedback process, and then you can actually get people recording themselves on Zoom, and I was like, oh, this is great, So I submitted it and didn't get in, and they're like, if you want reasons why, let us know. And so I was like, yeah, why didn't it? And they're like, yeah, it's this was good about it. Maybe this would have been a little bit different. But they're like, yeah, but a lot of people also thought that the elephant in the room here is that he's someone that comes from privilege, and it would have been great if he had maybe mentioned that in the documentary, because for those of you who haven't seen it, this guy that basically broke his neck, became paralyzed, a quadriplegic essentially, is someone that comes from, he's a bit well-to-do, so okay, that opens up maybe some doors for physical therapy and stuff or whatever. But the point is, the guy is paralyzed. The guy has a traumatic brain injury. His life will never be the same. He'll never stand, never walk. And then just to kind of glaze over that whole thing, he has a breakdown at the end, and then just go, yeah, you guys just didn't talk about he was a rich white guy. You didn't talk about that, and we just can't do it. And I just felt like that was kind of unfair, and it really had nothing to do with the film. That just seems like a more just personal, take on it. But that shouldn't take away from the filmmaking. So basically I submitted to a lot of festivals, and it really didn't get into many. I know it's competitive, so I'm not going to sit here and say that's the reason why I didn't get
No, that's where I come in.
That's okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Because you can say, it is highly competitive, but I can say as someone who sees, 1,500 indie films a year submitted to 2 festivals, and I think that would be when you told me that you had submitted to other festivals and not gotten in, I think I was just like, oh man, it's because your subject, who is amazing, and really it's about art. It's really about art and the human mind.
Yeah, and the human spirit, really.
And the human spirit, yeah. And really it's just an amazing story. But I knew it was because a lot of festivals, I mean, if they state in their mission statement, our goal is to present the underprivileged and the underserved and those who did not grow up with advantages, I have nothing but respect for that standpoint. Mm-hmm. And our jury loves films about said subjects, loves, embraces them, probably does give them a little bonus, but it's also because their stories are way more unique, right? Very the underrepresented are underrepresented.
So the stories are kind of fresher and stuff. You don't really see them as much.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, that's what I actually say to sometimes I am friends with some white men. I just because everyone always says that about the Converse. Oh, I have friends who are X. I'm like, oh yeah, I have friends who are white. And I mean, I say to them, look, nothing personal, but if you're going to write a story, it better not be about a guy nervous to pick up the phone to call the woman he likes, because I have seen that 10,000 times in my life. You have to be original. Whereas I admit, when someone submits a story about somebody who, is dealing with calling someone to ask them out on a date and they're trans, that is not a story I've seen 1,000 times. Right. So it strikes me differently. Mm-hmm. It's just... Yes, there is some built-in originality because they have been forced into hiding for most of their existence. Yeah. So, I mean, that is one thing. But to reject a documentary about a painter struck me as purely the wrong version of underrepresentation, the wrong interpretation of representing the underrepresented. Because we're saying, it's and you didn't we talk at the festival about how there's also been cases where after a traumatic brain injury, someone is fluent in a language they never heard before. Yeah, we are literally talking about neuroscience. And his art is beautiful. Mm-hmm. So it's just, So I had to turn to you and say, rich white guy. That's
And
you got burned because he's a rich white guy.
And you nailed it. It was actually before I told you that was kind of the reason. Like you called it out, and I think it goes to show like your experience with watching so many films. And that really was the case, I think. That one explicitly said it, but I'm like, man, if they said it, it's probably. But it's weird. We live in this world of like right now of, it's a lot of identity politics and,
and it's forced on us every day.
Yeah, and like, we have to have more females in film, and that's, of course, great. Like, but I just think that when it starts to just seep into everything, where like you just see a story, like we're talking about, it's about neuroscience, it's about the human spirit. It's literally like anyone can relate to it. We've all gone through stuff that's been difficult, and we've had to overcome. And this is what I told him, stories like his are what you make films about because they're at a higher level of, it's like basically what you go through, but now this is like at a higher level that's worthy of a film being made of it, so we can all look at it and take something away from it. So I think it's a film that anybody can watch it and take that away. And it was just weird because I'd never heard that said before. And I think I'm also, I have a healthy amount of naivety about certain things. That never crossed my mind. He was the one that actually kind of mentioned something while we were shooting a little bit, like, I don't really want people to, and I was like, I didn't even cross my mind. Capital, the same thing. A friend of mine watched it and was like, oh, this is so woke. And I'm like, but it's not though. I don't want to give away the film, but it's like, it's just these things I never thought like, it's like, oh, it's so political. I'm like, yeah, that's the skin of the film. It's just, it could have been about a CEO that got called out. It could have been about anything. It just happens to be a politician, and I don't know. I just feel like, man, you talk a little bit of politics in a film, or man, you talk, there's a white guy, people freak out. And they're just like, oh yeah, this is a perfect moment for me to step in and just, give my beliefs on this. And I just think it's a disservice. I think, it's weird. It's like to accept the underrepresented, you have to omit another group of people, like, and I get it. There's a lot of, there's a lot of white people in film and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that like those stories, but it's just weird. It's like to, because, you know what I mean? Like it's like to accept them. You have to push the old guy that hit his head, but he's white. Get him out of here because we need to get,
Yeah. Whereas, and all I'm saying is I don't believe in pushing that one out of the way.
Yeah.
But I do believe in pushing boring straight white guy stories out of the way that I've seen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Like if you're not creative, I'm like, do something original. That's all we're asking for at the festival level is if you're gonna show me the film, a remake of the films I've seen for the last, I'm 56, so I've been watching movies for 45, 50 years.
And you were watching movies when that shit was good. Because like you were watching.
It was good, but you can't watch the same thing over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
Like it's just, that's why, when someone comes around and they're fresh, all of a sudden everyone embraces it. Yeah. And heck, before we started recording, we were talking about, Oppenheimer and Barbie and stuff. And the truth is, one of them we've seen a film like that before, and one of them we've never seen a film like that before. Right. And so it's no wonder that Barbie did amazingly well at the box office because it was at least original.
Yeah.
No one had fucking seen that before.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't like it, and even if you found it. By the way, I'm happy to throw down with people who are anti-woke because I'm like, oh, so you're against the idea that the Constitution is correct when it says we're all created equal? Like, you really have a problem with people being equal?
Yeah.
Because that's all woke is.
Yeah.
Is equal.
Yeah.
But I also agree that it shouldn't go the other way.
Right. And I don't know. I think sometimes it could be a hindrance to just making good art. Like, I just think it needs to exist in a place where you're not tethered by all these political, or it should just operate in its own thing. And I just think that there's probably been a lot of movies that have been shut down, or ideas that were just like, but in this climate, screw the climate, screw the climate of whatever. People don't. I just think a lot of people that are making decisions about movies, they don't know anything. How many times have you heard we could never get this made. They said, and then it becomes a smash hit. And the people are so arrested by the moment and stuff. They don't think that a movie can live forever. Like it's not just about now. It's about a story that people can watch now. People can watch 5-10 years from now. The climate will change, but the story, and if it's a good one, will stand the test of time. And like, if you're talking about themes, and if you're talking about, I honestly think if you make a film that's so about the moment that you're like, oh, dude, you got the woke thing in here, you got the trans thing in here, you got the whole thing. I mean, I'm saying you make the whole thing. In 15 years or 10 years, it'll be like, that's so outdated. Not because those ideas like went out the window, but because, society will eventually change, and it's like, it won't be such a hot button topic. Maybe there will be like transit will just be accepted and it's chill or whatever. And like, you're super like, and maybe for the moment it was an important film to make, but I just think that within 10 years, it'll just be outdated,
Yeah. And there's always, there's good and bad with everything. You're reminding me of, I've seen an interview with Samuel L. Jackson where he discusses the N-word and Tarantino's use of it and says, looks right into the camera, and he's just doing an interview, and he just goes, look at the strength of the African-American characters in Quentin's scripts. He could use the N-word 1,000 times for all I care.
Yeah.
The whole point is he's portraying my people the way I feel we deserve. Yeah. And freaking out about the N-word being used in a slave. Well, look, maybe he should dial it back next time.
I mean,
but not with Django Unchained.
Yeah, but Pulp Fiction, like that scene where he's in the kitchen, and it's like they bring, and it's just, you're like, Quentin.
That one, and not only that,
Quentin, dude.
And admittedly, he's not the best actor.
No, so it makes it even
worse.
I know, because if a really good actor maybe could have made it, but it's just a wrong note on the piano. Sure, like, say it a couple times, get it out of your system, but it's just. Like,
but then the other argument, and I think Samuel L. Jackson might have made this one, was that there are people like that, like pretending that they're not around, right? Yeah. In fact, one of the things that, you and I probably get to witness in our lives, it might have happened to you, is when that racist person thinks they're safe with you, and they say something to you along the lines of, yeah, I remember we used to be able to use the N-word. and like they're nostalgic for it. And I'm like, oh, you're nostalgic for a word that said other people are less human than you.
Yeah.
Because that's really what the word means. It means you are sub. Yeah. You are subhuman. Yeah. You are less than I am.
Yeah.
And it's like, so anyway. Yeah, we got on the Pulp Fiction top, but yeah, it is. Look,
and also not to say like these stories, like when I was saying you make basically the ultimate woke movie. Like there needs to be stories from every walk of life, and I want to make that clear. Is that like I want to if there's a trans story, if there's this, like I think it's all valid, but I just think when it becomes the thing that's going to basically say if a movie is going to be made or not, or if it's going to be accepted or not. I think that's where it's kind of like overstepping and just kind of seeping into just the art itself. Like, tell those stories 100%. Like, we need those so people can see like, oh, these transgender people exist. Oh, whatever. Like back in the day, seeing gay couples was more of a big deal, but still. But I just think that it's gotten in the way of just like, then it gets political and all that stuff. And
it's been made political against everyone's will, right? Because I'm just going to say it. There is a political party. The Republican Party uses the trans community. They attack it in order to manipulate people who might vote for them into fearing what this community that is such a small percentage poses no threat to us, poses no threat to our sports programs and our kids.
Yeah.
No threat at all. And yet, I have my ex-wife's family on Facebook saying to me, it's not safe to go into Target because there's men in the ladies' room. And it's like, you've stood next to a trans woman in your life and not known. And her using that women's room is not what you're portraying it as. And like, I just wish you could understand this, that like, it's not how it's being sold to you. You're being manipulated because they want to lower billionaires' taxes and raise your taxes.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I think like this kind of gets into something
I got super political. But.
No, it's okay. I mean, especially right now, November 7th. Like, it's 2 days.
2 days ago, we found out that the people of America. Well, so a beautiful story is that my kid, when I told her when she was old enough, actually when Hillary was running for president, I said to her, when I was your age, we never thought there'd be a black president. Yeah. And you know what her response was? She looked at me like, that's dumb. The president's always been black. Because born in 2007, her entire life to that point,
that's funny, yeah.
There'd only been one president, and he was black. Yeah. And I just am so warmed by the idea that for a whole generation, that's normal.
That's normal, yeah.
And I think we learned 2 days ago that it's not normal yet for a woman.
Yeah, it's funny. I just watched it. I saw a thing where it's like Trump's 2-0 against women. Like he beat Hillary, he beat Kamala. It's like,
but it's never. I am going to use your podcast to hop on a brief soapbox. I hope I don't do it for too long. But she didn't get a fair shot. If Biden had January 2023 said, "I'm not running again." Open primary, and then she hopped in that primary and she became the candidate, she would have been so well known to the American people and made herself so clear that she could have beaten him with ease. She had 2.5 months to do what normally takes a year and a half.
Yeah.
And she came close.
Yeah.
So I just think it's not a fair example.
Yeah, comparing it to like Hillary Clinton. Yeah, I could see that. I think that yeah, it's like the Democrat. They just it just wasn't a good race that they ran, and so Trump's going to have his supporters and all that stuff. And honestly, like I don't know, I feel a little bit like I'm still like when I was talking about like art, like I'm always kind of searching and whatever. Like I feel like with my life too, like I can't say like I'm left or I'm right or whatever. I'm just someone that likes to just see what's going on and. I might have a take where someone will be like, did Paulo vote for Trump? I might have a take where he goes, he's voting for Kamala. But it's because I'm just like, I also don't want to be captured by the machine. I think that there's also part of me that's like a little nihilistic when it comes to just elections and politics in general, because I know that behind it, there's a whole mechanism. That's the thing that we actually need to be aware of and to fight against. It's not the people that they push out. And sure, like, president has power, of course, but then 4 years later, then the guy undoes what he did, I think that the left, they just didn't have a great race. I think when the president, like when the guy drops out with 2.5 months left, and then before that he was like, you're like, this guy has dementia. It's like you're really on the back foot. So you're right. I think Kamala she didn't get a fair shot, I hope that with this, this kind of ties a little bit into what we were talking about. It's like, I just hope that this doesn't make people that are like, I don't know, against Trump or against this stuff, like just go, we're going to go into a cocoon for 4 years and we'll see you in 4 years. Because I'm like, okay, so what is that going to help? To just my girlfriend works at a cafe. She's like, oh yeah, so-and-so didn't come in because she was so upset by the election she couldn't even like get out of it. I'm like, get over it. Like I know it's look, I know that might seem harsh and there's probably people but I just feel like to just do that and just be in a corner and like and I get it. 2 months from now people move on and I get it. So it'll happen naturally. But I just feel like I think it's time for the country to like come together, even if it's something that you don't want, like just deciding to just, I don't know, put the blinders on and pretend like it didn't happen or like you don't agree with it.
Or be aware that like you want to be more involved now.
Yeah, more involved, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like or actually be like, understand like, well, why did he win? Or why is it that like with all these things that people have said about him, and not only that, but there's been more people that have gone to that party that were left before. Why is that happening? And so it's like, instead of it being like, oh, it's the same old Trump or the same thing, it's like there's something going on. And this is what I, speaking politics with people leading up to this, I'm like, there's a shift happening in American politics, and I just think people, especially on the left, need to wake up to that fact and see why is that. Maybe, open yourself up to other things. Look, I'm not saying to just change your ideals or anything, but I don't know. I think that this isn't a normal like time. It's
not normal, and really, the person who wanted to take a day off, I kind of get it because talk about a roller coaster. Everybody who was, I'll just use the color blue, everyone who identified with the left felt doomed when Biden was refusing to step down. Then felt worry when he stepped down and handed it to Harris. And then got hopeful for a minute,
little bit,
while she was ramping up, and she really narrowed that gap. I mean, she's talk about 100-yard dash. He started at 90 yards, and she started at 0 yards. And then nearly caught up, and then fell short. And it's like, oh, that's a pretty rough emotional ride, and that's just been since July. I mean, I can still remember discussing in July with my best friend and his wife that we were just praying Biden would hurry up and get out.
I know, because the clock's ticking and stuff.
And it was so it's tough. It's tough.
It's
tough.
It's just.
But don't give up on the country, and don't give up on the system, and don't give up on democracy.
I guess that's sort of my point. It's like, and I know it's like the day after, so like I said, but I feel like even my girlfriend, who's very liberal, like she was literally crying when Harris lost. Even her, she was like, like, come on, like you still got to go to work, like you know what I mean? Like she's over here like busting all these tables and like busting her ass, and like she's like, oh, why aren't you having any help? Oh, because she, the election just was too much, and like so that's sort of what I mean. It's like don't just like fully on despair, and this is kind of what I was going to say is like I think that ties into media in general, and there's a part of me that feels a little bit like being in film and being in editing and stuff, like there's a world where I might get a more corporate job and I'm editing this or whatever. Media is like a very powerful thing, and it can be very dangerous, and I feel like it can be used for brainwashing and I think propaganda, and I feel like the same way I heard it the other day where it's like the same way Eisenhower was like, beware of the military industrial complex, beware of the media industrial complex. I think that the reason why these elections have been so crazy is because of the media. I think that there's a lot of power in image and audio and stuff, and we know that, but I just don't movies are being called content now. Everything's just becoming like this big mass. There's like, I don't know, it makes it so it's like I'm a little torn too, like because I am in media, I guess you could say, but media itself, it's like it's doing damage it's doing good, but it's also doing damage.
Well, and social media is replacing traditional media, and there's growing pains with all changes like this, and algorithmic amplification is real. And my understanding is, without getting too political, I'm very biased. I'm whatever.
Mm-hmm. We're in LA.
I used to identify as libertarian a long time ago because I would say to people, I'm like, okay, I do want clean air and clean water. Why can't I have that and cut taxes? Explain to me why I can't have both in one party. And the answer, and then Obama cut taxes. I'm like, okay, everything's in one. But wait, where was I going?
We were talking about social media and how it's dangerous, growing pains, all that stuff. And
like the generation that gets their news from TikTok is getting furiously biased stuff that the Chinese government is setting those algorithms and what gets amplified, and that's dicey.
It's dicey, and I think that we just keep moving in that direction where it's like, who knows what films will look like in 15 years? Who knows what documentaries will look like? Because you can say whatever you want. Martin Scorsese can just yell from the rooftops about cinema and stuff, and it's great. But hey, there still needs to be people that buy the ticket to watch. And if the people right now, which is the generation of early 20s, teens and under, they're not learning to go to the movies. They're not even really learning to watch Netflix anymore. There's the second screen syndrome where now you're watching a film, but you're on your phone. So this is a very, my timing can be really good sometimes, but also really funny sometimes. I moved to Los Angeles, basically right before the strikes happened. So I got that gig, and then that show got canceled. Like, so somebody even said like, "Oh, what a great time to like move." And then also like I'm getting into film at this time where it's like it's all in flux, you know, like it's all, you know, the strikes, like is Hollywood dead? Like is our films over? Like all this stuff. So it's a very interesting time to sort of get into this stuff. But I think like even with that being said, I think that films, even though they require so much more, they are kind of like a painting. You know, you're not going to turn to a painter and say, the president's so crazy, he probably shouldn't, or like the social atmosphere is so crazy, like how are you going to paint? It's like, I'm going to just paint, you know? And I feel like that's kind of my mentality too. You know, I obviously have to make money and eat and stuff, but I just feel like this is something that I enjoy doing. It's been kind of part of with me my whole life in one form or another, if it's acting or if it's whatever. Now it's kind of filmmaking, and I'm just going to like continue to, you know, but hopefully there's a space where that's still, you know, there's still people that want to watch films that you can still make some money off of them and stuff. And I think that still exists, but it's just, this is a, you know, a dicey time, I think, a little bit for
it is. There's a reorganization going on, yeah. and we don't, you know, look, I'm making an effort with this indie channel thing.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that a lot of people prefer AVOD, which means advertising video on demand, where you watch, where it's free and you get shown commercials again.
Yeah.
And, you know, the indie channel's SVOD, it's subscription based, but the idea is for $5.99 a month, you're supporting indie creators, you know, independent artists, which I'm hoping has an appeal. But like, we don't really know what the next big thing is going to be. Yeah. And honestly, like, TikTok probably isn't doing well for anyone who puts stuff on it. It's only doing well for the company that created it and puts ads on it. And like, you know, and honestly, I just have to throw one more barb at TikTok, which is like destroy the world with its being a portrait, but it's being 16 by 9 the wrong way. The fact that it's taller than it is wide.
Yeah.
Is painful for those who love cinema and understand that, like, oh my God, I'm going to get on one last soapbox, but then we got to wrap it up.
Okay.
But no, the reason why a movie screen is the shape it is, and our TVs are also 16 by 9, is that we evolved surviving from predators. We have peripheral vision, and it doesn't go up and down; it goes wide, and staring at your phone and looking at an image that's cropped to be vertical destroys cinema. Oh, it just hurts.
It hurts, yeah.
Anyone who's ever tried to cut a movie trailer for use on TikTok as well. Yeah. Oh, it just fucking sucks.
You're just zooming in so much and losing all composition. It's
a boring image for our eyes because our eyes go wide.
Yeah.
If I go like this with my hand, you see that way over.
Yeah.
But if there's something way above my head, you actually have to tilt up because like we didn't have to really worry too much. There were no birds big enough to carry us away.
Yeah.
So we were looking out for the saber-toothed tigers.
Yes.
As I like to joke, but yeah, that's my.
And it's funny. It's like it goes part to like it's so artificial that even the aspect ratio is artificial. Like you're saying, it's not even natural to us.
It's not.
It's so unnatural to be scrolling and doing all that stuff. Like literally even the physical frame that it's in is unnatural. It's not what we, you know, so yeah, we'll see what happens.
It just doesn't work for storytelling.
It doesn't work for storytelling.
And I still believe, I use this one all the time, but I still believe that storytelling is essential to the human brain.
Yeah.
That we told stories around campfires when we were hunter-gatherers. It's how we survive as beings, is telling stories of our lives and of our day and making things up of how we'd like them to be or how we don't want, you know, like narrative and storytelling is essential because that's how we evolved. We evolved around a campfire and community kept us alive.
Yeah.
And now here we are dividing our community.
I know.
With stuff.
Yeah.
But there's people making a lot of money off it. That's the problem. All right, so anyway.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to? See, I kind of fucked up because I pushed us in the politics direction.
No, it's okay. I think I might have brought it up a little bit too with my. It was.
I hope it helped.
Yeah, no, it was because of my short film and it's a little political and stuff, but it's all good. Also, like I said, we're like literally 2 days from the thing, so it's kind of on everyone's like.
Yeah, we literally lived through, and we're about to, Well, actually, I admittedly have been avoiding the news. I'm not paying.
I think that's good. I think that's the other thing too. It's like, I guess I know we got to wrap it up, but I'll just say one last thing. The guy from that documentary I'm talking about, the Israeli rapper, he said some stuff that I thought was very true. He's just like, because he's in the social media game, and he's like, so much of this is just being amplified by this, and people can't even like come together because there's like a brick wall of the phone that's just separating us. And then he said something. He's like, I don't want to watch the news. I want to make the news. That was like that's kind of his mantra. So instead of like watching it, he's going out there and interviewing people about Palestine. He's over here making a music video, and he's getting attention for that. Now he's become his own news. And I thought that was like kind of a brilliant way to put it. It's like, it's almost saying like, get out there and just like live. Get out there and live your life, and like try not to because all that news, all that TikTok, they want your attention, they want your focus, they want your mind, and don't let them have it. I know I'm susceptible to it. I have a pretty bad phone addiction, but I just know that it's like where it's at is out there in the world.
You know what? News. Nothing will cure my phone addiction, but I got to share 2 things with you. One is someone did tell me about a TV writer I know was in a meeting with Netflix where they were told, we need pilots to be written for the second screen. And when you hear that, like now Netflix programming is going to be so lowest common denominator that they know you're looking at your phone while Netflix is playing. So all plot points have to be repeated 2 to 3 times so that you make sure the audience catches it, so they don't have to hit pause and back up. All kinds of shit. And ever since this TV writer told me about that Netflix meeting she had, I put my phone as far away from myself as I can during while I'm watching TV, because I do not want to be a second screen person. Yeah. But now I'm going to add one more thing, and this is actually the podcast before you. Regina Pigsley, wonderful filmmaker. She's had 2 films at the festivals over the years. She is in Cairo, Egypt right now with World Central Kitchen, which for those who don't know is kind of like, there's Doctors Without Borders. Who World Central Kitchen feeds people in war-torn areas. So she's actually in Cairo helping to get food into Gaza. Wow. And when this came up, neither she nor I had the guts. We discussed this afterwards. So this is me saying, hey, Regina, hopefully you're listening. Yeah. But like she and I discussed how like we both kind of regretted that we didn't just say, you're feeding the people of Gaza. Like, look,
you mean just like out in the world? Or?
I grew up Jewish, and I no way support Hamas. Yeah. But there are people who are starving to death, and I'm glad that she's doing something about it. As is she. And because of the political climate, we both just talked about feeding people in war-torn areas, and we didn't carry it to that next step of just saying, you're in Cairo because you're feeding the Gazans. Yeah. You're feeding Palestinians.
And I think that's an important thing to actually say because, like, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of history in there and stuff, and it's just, it sucks that,
it doesn't make her pro-terrorist, and it doesn't make her pro-Hamas.
But I think it's actually important because it's like, there's still human beings there that, like, just need food. And so,
And by the way, they had as much control over Hamas being their rulers as we Californians do about having Trump as our president. We just have to accept our leader sometimes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that leadership has let them down, I think.
Furiously.
It's really let them down. And I think, it's an unfortunate thing. But wow, look at this. It's my documentary is political. My short film is look at me.
You got politics all over.
Look at me. Oh my gosh. But again, if someone would be like, oh, Paulo's a political filmmaker, I'm not. I'm the springboard guy. But I should.
And by the way, an artist does reflect the culture they're in.
That's true too. Yeah,
you have no choice. We are all products of our time. Yeah, and if I don't see how someone could not be. Yeah. So you are portraying the world that you see.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna like go out of my way like, oh, this movie's gonna be so like right wing or it's gonna be so left wing. It's gonna be great. No, it's just like I said, the springboard idea of like whatever, it inspires me. And if there's some themes in there because of the story, it is what it is. But like I said, I'm trying to just make stuff that appeals to me, that inspires me, and you know, if some people might call it this or that, it's like at the end of the day, I'm just expressing myself. Yeah. And
now I apologize for the joke, but and if anyone really comes after you, say, "Hey, I'm Brazilian. Mm-hmm. I'm. It's part of the BRIC countries, right? Uh-huh. Why am I forgetting all four BRICS? But anyway,
wait, BRIC country?
BRIC, BRIC. It's Brazil, Indonesia. What's the R?
I've never heard BRIC.
It's an international. It's like four countries that are on the verge. Sort of like in between the developed world and the undeveloped world. Like Brazil is nearly a world power.
Yeah.
Like it should be soon.
Yeah. Well, they had a good run about, I feel like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, and then they had a shitty president.
Yeah, and they were like, their economy was like 5th or 6th in the world, and Brazil was really booming, and then it just couldn't sustain.
The I is India, the C is China.
Is it Russia or no? Russia. I don't know what Russia even is.
Russia's broke. They just sell gas.
That's a depressing place. I've never been there, but I can just...
Yeah, we don't have time to discuss Russia.
I know, yeah.
But I went to St. Petersburg. I recommend everyone go to St. Petersburg and go to the Hermitage because they stole all the great art from Europe. The Russian soldiers who took out the Nazis for us. Took everything that Hitler stole, they took back, basically. Well, and then actually,
they stole what Hitler stole.
And then when the Bolsheviks took over Russia and made it communist, which is not socialist, communist, every private citizen's art collection became public property.
Wow!
So it's all in the Hermitage Museum, and it's amazing.
I bet.
If you love art, go.
Yeah.
And you should definitely see Accidental Artist and appreciate freaking art. Art's beautiful. And I got to admit, like every festival, there's a few documentaries about artists. And I'm like, it really is kind of like the perfect marriage because painting, fine art, is a medium that doesn't, like I can't even name a famous artist who's currently living. And creating.
Oh, painter, yeah, I can.
You know what I mean?
Banksy, but that's like not even...
Banksy, but that's pop art.
Yeah, some more graffiti and stuff. But yeah, like a straight up like painter like that.
Yeah. So it really is, documentary film is one of the few ways to really shine a light that there are still people painting. There's still art because art's such a visual medium.
Yeah.
And I love it. I always have the goal to go to... my goal every year is to go to 5 museums during the year.
Oh, wow.
It's a tough one, unless you travel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like once you're kind of in a city, they've got their 3 or 4 museums, and then you're kind of done.
But how embarrassing that I still don't go to all the ones in L.A.
I've never been to that, the Getty?
The Getty's 5 minutes from
here. Never been, yeah.
It's amazing. But even better is the Broad downtown, which is also free.
The Bro?
Broad, B-R-O-A-D. Eli Broad, who created the suburb, created the model home, what do you call it, the cookie cutter home?
Oh, like where they're all the same.
Yeah.
Planned development.
Kaufman and Broad, they were developers, but he used his bill. He and his wife have the most amazing collection of art, and they show it to the world for free in downtown LA. Great museum. All right. Oh my goodness, man. We've really gone off topic.
It's okay. I didn't know where this was going to go. I was like, okay, we're going to talk about it, but it was fun. It was
really fun.
Yeah,
it's great to talk to you. All right, so website, social media. How do people people just watch all your shit? I'm sure you got links.
Yeah, I've got some links. I mean, Arrowwood Creative is the name of like my production company, I guess. So Arrowwood with 1W - creative. That's the Instagram. YouTube, basically the same thing. That's the name of the channel. So Arrowwood - creative, 1W for Arrowwood. And then if you want to watch Accidental Artist, it's on there. So I guess if you go to YouTube, you can search like Accidental Artist Arrowwood Creative, and then you'll see it. And then on there, you can also watch Zebra Man that we talked about. You can watch Cops Acting Badly. And hopefully soon you can watch Accidental Artist on your streaming.
The Indie channel.
The Indie channel.
The Indie channel. All right, excellent. So I will wrap us up. And by the way, everything Paulo just mentioned will be a clickable link in the show notes. That's when I sound like a real podcaster when I talk about show notes.
Make sure to subscribe, share.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm about to say that.
I've listened to a few podcasts in my time.
Yes, I know. I love podcasts. Yes. I actually, to my campfire storytelling mode, I also think that human beings crave conversation, and we're so isolated now with our little screens that I think the love of the podcast is really the love of conversation.
Totally. It's like the OG Joe Rogan, that's what he would say. He was like, it feels like, when he's there with like three of his friends, you're like the fourth friend that's just sitting in. You're not talking, you're just listening. And I think that's why like you said, why podcasts become so popular.
They are. They're really great. Yeah. All right. So like and subscribe. This is the Discover Indie Film Podcast. Whatever you're listening to it on, I wouldn't mind if you gave it a thumbs up or 5 stars, even wrote a nice review. Subscribe to it. If you want to learn more about this podcast or the TV series born from it, just go to discoverindiefilm.com. On social media, it's always at DIFwins. And when I mention a TV series, I was always trying to crack this nut because people would come on this podcast, and if they had a feature, it was on streaming. If they had a short, it was one of 117 billion videos on YouTube. So one of those feature filmmakers told me about Amazon Prime Video Direct, where you can upload stuff and have it included with Prime. So we took 25 short films of people who'd been on the podcast, and we put them together in 10 30-minute episodes and put it on Amazon. By the time we released season 3, so 30 episodes were up, we were getting 10,000 unique views a week.
Wow.
From unique viewers. Yeah. And Amazon, before we could release season 4, Amazon said, your $21 a month is too expensive for us. You can't be included with Prime anymore. It's got to be 99 cents an episode or $7.99 a season. So we went from 10,000 viewers a week and growing to not a lot. The number hurts me too much to say. So anyway, but the series is still on there. And if you go to Amazon Prime Video and search for Discover Indie Film, I swear to you, you're going to see, God, I think that the 7 seasons that are up, it's got to be about 150 films.
Wow.
And they're all fucking good. Fucking good.
Yeah, I'm sure they're fucking good.
Fucking good.
Go to the Sherman Oaks Film Festival.
And that's just good. Yes. Yeah, which is every December. And you can learn more if you go to ShermanOaksFF.com, and it's at ShermanOaksFF on social media. And more films than ever this year because we shifted to 2 screens. I think last year there probably was about 50 films were official selections. This year we broke 65. I might have been wrong about it. Last year might have been more like 45. But anyway, we're growing all the time. So that's Sherman Oaks Film Festival. That's always the weekend after Thanksgiving. Every June we have Film Invasion Los Angeles. Honestly, the only difference between that and Sherman Oaks is the time of year and the name. Otherwise, same ethos, same everything. Wonderful films, wonderful venue. You can learn more at filminvasionla.com, and it's at filminvasionla on social media. And like I said at the top, give the Indie Channel a shot. Just go to indiechannel.tv or go to your Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Android TV. Fine, you can watch movies on your phone with AirPods in or whatever crazy shit you do. I have seen our 17-year-old sitting on the couch in front of a 52-inch TV watching Netflix on her phone.
Yeah.
But I get it. She's got earbuds in and she's watching a screen and it's private and personal to her in a house with adults who might judge her if she's watching something with a lot of sex and drugs and violence.
Yeah.
So I'll give her that one. But if you want to watch the Indie Channel on your phone, just hold it so close to your eyes that it covers your peripheral vision because saber-toothed tigers are around, man.
That's right.
You gotta be aware.
Look, if you don't take anything away from this podcast, get horizontal, okay? Just get horizontal.
Turn your phone sideways.
Turn it sideways. God.
All the time. All right. Paulo, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. This was great.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.